CloudPod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, Google, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
and Peter.
Episode 50, recorded on December 9th, 2019. The smart choice would have been to go back to the room. Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Monday. We had a pretty big event last week that we should kind of talk about real quick, and that is the CloudPod's a year old today.
Yeah.
So we brainstormed this idea last year at a little conference called reInvent, and the first show was the post show. So technically, this is the annual or the first year anniversary, even though we're only on episode 50. That's Jonathan's fault though, so it's okay. Vacations incurring into the show. That's all right. But beyond the happy birthday to the podcast, which we're super excited about here, this is also the week after reInvent. And so you guys all joined us last week in reInvent. We saw many of you out on the show floor. We gave out stickers. We met people. We were super happy to do all that. And we do have a special guest with us today. Ryan Lucas is joining us once again. Hi, Ryan.
How's it going?
Good. It's going good. How about Jonathan, Peter? How are you guys doing out there?
Hanging in there.
I'm still alive, just about. I can start to feel myself again after last week. I'm surprised Ryan made it back, though.
I have a lot of practice.
I've not caught up on my sleep, though. I was trying to do show notes earlier and was trying not to put myself to sleep. We have quite a show, quite a action-packed. So we thought we'd be smart and we'd record on the 20th of November, thinking, of course, Thanksgiving, Amazon's going to be quiet before their big conference, and that was completely wrong. So there was about 80 plus announcements that happened between the last time we recorded a show and the reInvent start, which we count as Sunday night. And then there were 61 announcements at reInvent. So we are going to cover the highlights, the lowlights, those type of things. We will not cover everything. It will all be in the show notes, and these show notes for you, if you haven't looked at them, are brand new. Now have a lovely show note writer to help us out here on the show, which we are super excited about. And that'll also be available to you as a newsletter that you can sign up for at thecloudpod.net, where you can sign right up there for the newsletter and get these show notes emailed to you, or just take a look at them in your podcast player of choice. So that's all good, exciting news for you guys.
Cool. One of these days, maybe we'll have somebody else to do the podcast for us, too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm waiting on Lex and all the Amazon technologies to take over for us, but that hasn't happened yet. Well, the first and most important thing is to talk about the reInvent draft. And we ended the draft with a three-way tie, which is part of the reason why Ryan is here, to talk about who actually won this thing. So, Jonathan, you missed on Zero Low-Code Application Platform and Anthos-like hybrid multi-cloud platform. But you hit completely on Transit Gateway, cross-regional, and/or security group support, which is a fantastic call. That was your third choice that scored you that point, which is great.
Yeah. We did get security group support, but I hear it's on the roadmap.
I hear it's on the roadmap as well. But you said and/or. We were very clear in the recording that we covered that out. So
Good
you
save.
are good. Yes, good save. Peter, you missed on layer 7 egress filtering, and you missed on CloudWatch dependency mapping. But you did hit on Outpost generally available and/or shipping, which is the truth of both of those points. You got both of those, so congratulations to you, Peter, on that win. How do you feel?
Awesome. I feel pretty good about that. I was pretty close with the gateway, too. I mean, the ingress, if you notice the announcement about the ingress features, it's also egress features for directing traffic in and out of your VPC, but there is no layer 7 functionality yet.
Yeah, unfortunately. But we did also hear that might be in the future someday. So
I'm just going to keep guessing it until it comes up.
You're just too soon. And then I missed on the cost reduction for the network tier, which I was bummed about. And I missed on visual threat detection modeling for their security tools, although I almost hit that one, which we'll talk about later. And then I did hit a device with a camera, like a drone thing, essentially replace the Deep Racer. It was not a drone, but it was a piano called the Deep Composer. As well as they updated the Deep Racer with a new widescreen camera and LiDAR radar. So I definitely hit that on Sunday Night Live. So overall, we all hit 1 point, which is great. Congratulations, all three of us, for at least not being completely dense. Then on the artist pick, we all missed artist pick. We weren't even close on that. Anderson Paak, who also headlined on the Intersect show, was the key show of reInvent, as well as the drones and a bunch of other things that were happening at Replay, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then in the runner-up category, we did not hit a la carte instances of CPU and memory combinations. We did not hit perpetual free tier We did not hit on CloudFront deployment and or dev mode. And we did not hit on the year of organizations, although a lot of them did have organizations. It wasn't mentioned on stage. And then F1 data analytics, they did cover in Monday night for Peter. So he did get a runner-up, but they are not pointed as the rules state. So nice job hitting that one. But if you put in your picks, you would have won. So that's a bummer for you there, Peter. So there you go. That is the skinny on this. The one I mentioned that I was close on, the visual threat detection modeling for security tools, is basically a service they call Amazon Detective. They announced it in a breakout session. They did not announce it on the main stage anyway, although I was hoping Werner was going to mention it, and he did not. So that was my miss on that. So Peter, Ryan, how do you feel? How do you feel about this draft, and who do you think wins it for either creativity or something else? Because this is a clear three-way tie.
I mean, how do you pick a winner? It's a Sophie's choice. I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice to pick just one. So I think I'm going to leave it a tie, and you guys all have to share the point.
Hey.
Right. I paid you good money for this. I paid you. You reneged on that deal. I'm sorry, but I'm going to release the pictures I took.
Uh-oh.
Before you release the ones of me.
Yeah.
The F1 data analytics was pretty interesting, actually, in Monday Night Live. And they also had a F1 race car at one of the vendor booths on the floor. So that was pretty cool.
Anyone who hasn't watched the Peter DeSantis keynote, it's definitely worth a watch. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it is super good. Talks a lot about the HPC computer built on top of Amazon and how you can do that in a big way. So pre-event announcements, the things that we have to cover here to get us to the main event. We'll get through these pretty quickly here. So we've broken these out into a couple different categories. And the first category here is infrastructure platform. And these include things like cost categories, private links, SES, basic things that are kind of tied to generalness. And there's a ton of announcements here around application load balancers, etc. But we're going to cover two. The first one is the Amazon EC2 T instances now support unlimited mode at an Amazon account level. You can select unlimited mode preference at the CLI and SDK for the account. And this will change the default setting, allowing you to avoid costly CPU credit issues. Since the T3 and T3A, these systems have started up with it enabled by default, and that's not always what you want if you're trying to leverage those T instances for reduced costs.
I see the problem the other way around. I don't think the problem is extra cost for the T3 instances. I think it's that it's such a chore to have to enable unlimited mode for the T2 instances because it wasn't supported in the launch configurations in CloudFormation. And so you either had to do it on boot in user data or use the new launch templates. But if you've already got stuff deployed, then you don't have to go back and rewrite that. So I like this, but for the opposite reason that they're selling it as.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I just feel like it gets us one step closer to actually paying for what you use.
I have the same, like all the times I've seen this really required is like, as Jonathan said, it's like, oh, well, we want the cost savings of you using a T series, but we don't really want to designate, our prod account gets the CPU unlimited, or different. It changes the difference dynamic between environments, and if you're using a multi-account strategy and have workload spread out, it's much easier if you can just do it all at one level.
The other bunch of load balancer updates for you guys, weighted target groups for ALB, least outstanding requests for ALB. You can expand the subnet for network load balancers and private IP address selection for internal load balancers, as well as shared VPC support for network load balancers. So if you're super jazzed about load balancers, quite a few great new capabilities for you there in that group.
Yeah, the weighted target groups is probably the most useful for me because now we can do easy blue-green deployments.
That's what I was going to say, so I got nothing on top of that.
Moving on to our next category, which is databases. Several different things around performance insights and Aurora, machine learning, etc. Those are all great announcements. If you're interested in those things, check those out. But the two that we're going to highlight here are the Amazon RDS for SQL Server now supports differential restore and log restores. This is a pretty common thing in SQL Server where you potentially want to take a full restore, then a differential sometime later, and apply both of those to the system, or a full restore, then apply logs to the system in like 15-minute increments, for example, is a pretty common pattern. You cannot do that before. You had to always use a full restore to kind of start your database up on SQL Server, and now you can do both the differentials and the logs, which really opens up a lot of really great use cases for migrating to the cloud. So this is a really great feature, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that you couldn't do this since I'm not a big SQL Server user. So that's fantastic. I use this all the time on different database technologies. So this is kudos for them on them.
Is it only SQL Server?
This announcement's only SQL Server. I am not sure if this exists already for MySQL or Postgres, or if it's kind of be coming for those as well. I assume if it doesn't exist today, that it'll probably come in the next few months. but I think Postgres and MySQL always had a bit more flexibility than SQL Server did, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. The other great announcement was you can now enhance the availability of your existing Amazon DynamoDB tables by adding global replicas. So previously, if you want to take advantage of that 5.9 availability on Dynamo with the new global table replicas, you would have to basically create brand new tables and migrate your data over, which could be a pretty expensive operation or potentially downtime related that you can't necessarily do in your production application. So now with this new feature, you can just enable that on a single region database table, and it'll become global region by populating a snapshot of the existing table and then keeping them in sync, allowing you to that sweet 5.9s of availability on Dynamo.
I got a pet peeve about this product announcement, though, when they talk about doing it with just a few clicks. I really wish. I mean, I don't think many people listening to the podcast are going to do this with a few clicks. It's going to be CloudFormation or Terraform or some other kind of
Well,
code-driven.
you don't want the clicks.
No
you don't want
clicks.
the mouse.
Stop talking about clicks. You can do it.
A few lines of code. A few lines of code.
I mean, the blog is typically always has GUI walkthroughs and then CLI walkthroughs, and I didn't. Honestly, we had so much news to get through that I didn't look that closely. So I apologize for insulting you with my language.
This was a common theme. This isn't just you. I noticed this in a lot of announcements before reInvent and during reInvent. So there was really hyping the simplicity of a lot of these new feature adds for adding on to existing workloads. So just a few clicks or just a few lines was definitely something I saw a lot of.
Speaking of just a few clicks, I'm very happy to introduce our new CloudPod sponsor, Blue Medora. Most large organizations run 6 or even more monitoring tools. Each of them uses a mixture of data collection techniques from technology providers, open source communities, or custom integrations, and maintaining dozens of integrations across these tools can be a significant investment. Blue Medora introduces BindPlane, not another monitoring platform, but the industry's first monitoring integration as a service. BindPlane can gather data from over 150 technology data sources spanning your entire organization. Remove or reduce your reliance on expensive monitoring and SIM solutions by sending log data to Google Stackdriver, New Relic, or Azure Monitor. Check out the extensive list of integrations, all provided at no additional cost. Learn more and sign up for a free trial by visiting bluemedora.com/cloudpod. The link's available in our show notes, and as a bonus for CloudPod listeners, Blue Medora are offering Google Compute Platform credits to help get you started. BindPlane. Seamlessly stream hybrid cloud and on-premise metric and log data.
Security is our next category here. Lots of code stuff here. New partner integrations into Security Hub, publishing log files for RDS SQL Server to CloudWatch, KMS enhancements, Cognito, applications and self-managed directories for secure LDAP. All really great announcements, but there are several here that took the prize being talked about here in the show. The first one being the CloudTrail Insights. This allows you to identify and respond to unusual API activity. This has been launched in all commercial regions. CloudTrail Insights automatically analyzes write management events from CloudTrail Trails. That's weird. CloudTrail Trails and alerts you to unusual activity. For example, if there's an increase in terminate instance events that differ from established baseline, you'll see an insight event that'll get put into Security Hub. CloudTrail Insights cost 35 cents per every 100,000 write management events. Activity baselines are scoped to the region and account in which the CloudTrail is operating. After enabling, it'll take about 36 hours for that first insight to come into play. So this is a great way to kind of see anomalous behavior in your account.
How many trails could a CloudTrail trail if a CloudTrail could tail trails?
Nice.
Awesome.
I wonder what that, like, if there's an average ratio of write management events to bill, so people could tell roughly based on the size of their account how much this is going to cost. I can't tell if that's cheap or very expensive.
It's not one of the biggest things on our bill.
I mean, it depends on how many CloudTrail Insights you run into, and so if you're being compromised, I bet you get a lot of them. And I bet if you're a normal everyday, it's probably very low. And so
Well, but it's for each event analyzed, not for each.
It's not for each reported event. It's for each
Not for
ingested
yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 100,000 events. That's a fair amount of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cheap. I'm afraid to say that though without testing.
And the thing is I was talking to a person in one of the Lambda sessions, and he was talking about how expensive their bill was, and it was expensive for the wrong reasons because they had a looping condition. But so even though Lambda's super cheap, you can make it really expensive if you mess up in some ways. So yeah, everything is dependent on your workload. Is kind of the asterisk I would put around any comment that says Amazon is cheap. So.
Yeah, this stuff is cool because it's the thing I love about this is even if you shouldn't need it because you should know what to look for. If you're worried about like insider attacks, and if an insider knows what you're looking for, then they know not to breach those thresholds, kind of like the multiple $9,000 withdrawals from the bank, so you don't go over the 10K number. And this is going to make it a lot harder, I think, for insiders to do things they shouldn't be doing.
The next evolution in Amazon single sign-on has arrived, and apparently that evolution is connects to Azure AD. Apparently, Amazon SSO now connects to Azure AD to leverage their existing identity store. You can automatically sync user identities and groups from Azure AD, and you can sign into multiple accounts and applications using the existing Azure AD identity. No need to remember usernames and passwords, and it'll be a familiar sign-on experience if you're using Office products. This is available in all supported regions, and it's actually a really nice feature for those who are in the Azure AD ecosystem for things like Office 365. This is a great enabler without you having to kind of put a bunch of middle layers in between to get to Amazon single sign-on. So I applaud this announcement, although next evolution is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, just look how easy it is now to bring Azure customers over to AWS.
Yeah, just that much easier.
I mean, the reality here is that a lot of IT shops went to Office 365 a while ago because managing Exchange is terrible. So, when they migrated that, they moved all the AD functionality over there. So this is a pretty good win, actually. I think this is going to be used a lot, and it's really going to fight off, competitors in the SSO space.
You know what's worse than managing Exchange, Ryan?
Nothing.
Managing workmail.
Ooh. Sting.
So I think the part that is kind of net new that I haven't seen yet, which is why they're calling this evolutionary, is the ability of automatic provisioning into AWS from your single sign-on. They don't think they support that with Okta or any of the other capabilities unless you're using the managed Amazon AD services. So that's pretty nice, actually. That is a little bit of a great feature to kind of compete with Okta in a big way. So nice to see. Maybe that'll come out to other players here in the future as well. Amazon Secrets Manager is making it easier to rotate your secrets through CloudFormation, including secrets for Redshift clusters and DocumentDB databases. The automatic rotation will automatically create the Lambda, IAM role, and permissions needed to execute the rotation. So that's super nice. Secrets Manager was a bit limited, being mostly focused on Aurora and RDS before, and this constant push out to the other systems is going to be really great to keep them secure.
Yeah, I look forward to just the more and more services that they're going to enable automatic rotation on. It's really going to help a lot of teams, because I think that's one of the hardest things to do is rotate a secret. You have to either do a redeployment or you have to touch production in some way, and so it gets a little ugly. But you also want to be secure, so it's frustrating. If this is handled for you at the API layer, fantastic.
It's weird, especially because people have been typically passing parameters to CloudFormation. Well, not that they should have been, but and so the state is maintained in CloudFormation. So if you go and rotate that secret externally, it doesn't no longer ties up with the state that you think it is. So adding these features, like pulling parameters from parameter store directly from CloudFormation now, is pretty cool.
I think you referenced the parameter and the CloudFormation parameter, and in the parameter store you reference the secrets management secret. So it's not confusing at all to do that, but you can't actually do it the same way.
All right, this one's actually pretty cool. Use employee attributes for access control. This is a change. Traditionally, we use role-based access, or RBAC. And these are things like, a finance DBA has access to a finance server plus finance tables in the database. But as you think about an organization and the number of groups, the number of roles and different needs, it gets very difficult to scale this over time as the complexity of the number of roles and systems increases. And so Amazon is now solving this with attribute-based access control, or ABAC. You define permissions based on matching attributes, and you can use any type of attribute in the policies, user attributes, resource attributes, and environmental attributes. And the policies are written as if-then rules. So, if an attribute role equals manager, then she can access file resources having attribute sensitivity equals confidential, for example. These attributes are, of course, tags in AWS, which we have talked about on the show in the past that we weren't a big fan of. But this is why they're going this direction. This is the final answer we were looking for. And there's a couple other announcements coming up here that will help make this more secure for you as well. But you can now pass these attributes in your AWS session via SAML. This does support these tags based on sessions, so they're temporary tags, and they work with things like Auth0, ForgeRock, IBM, Okta, OneLogin, Ping Identity, and RSA, and I assume the AWS SSO, although it was not in the article.
It's at this point that I realized how many announcements there are, because I was super excited about this and then reInvent, and now I'm rediscovering this due to all the other announcements I've had to ingest since then.
Yeah, just I forgot about that
This
one.
is cool. Yeah.
But it's really useful because IAM has never been fine-grained enough to be able to give different, sort of persona-based views in the console. And so I think this is definitely a step in the direction of personas.
I don't know about persona-based views. That's actually one of my biggest gripes against IAM is that they give you the same view. It's just when you try to do something, you get an error based on your persona.
So coupling this with the next announcement, which is using tag policies to manage tags across multiple AWS accounts, this is a pretty nice thing. So this is a tagging, of course, it creates a strong foundation. You might start to use tags with only the very best of intentions, but things like standardized on names, values, capitalization, and punctuation is a great idea, but challenging to put in practice, especially in an organization across 100 and some odd accounts. But now with Amazon organizations, you can create and apply tag policies and apply them to any desired Amazon account or OU in the organization or to the entire organization. The tag policies contain tag rules, and each rule maps a tag key to the allowable values for the key. The tag policies are checked in when you perform operations that affect the tag of the existing resource, and these are all built into a tag or compliance reports. And so a combination of being able to deny changing a tag after it's been set, and this tag policies to make sure you have standardized naming and values, and the attributes thing. This is a pretty nice, secure opportunity for tagging in general, which is really great.
I think it'd be pretty hard to turn on if you've got a big organization with lots of accounts already because you got to break things.
I was worried about that too. So the tag policy, when you turn it on, it will give you a tag compliance report right away telling you that, hey, this many instances don't have a tag. But it won't break them or turn them off or anything like that. But when the next time they get updated by something, it'll error then and tell you, hey, you need to now set the tag.
But if you have existing auto-scaling groups, then...
Well, auto-scaling group doesn't count, I don't think, in that model, but it's really if you change the CloudFormation or you change the Terraform, that's what it's going to tell you, hey, you need to update the compliance tag.
This is one I can't wait to test because this is my fear as well. But I mean, if we could, having a standard policy that's definable in this way, like I don't know how many, like the billing reports and accounts that I have access to, where it's like prod with an uppercase P, prod with a lowercase p, production.
Yeah.
Like it's everywhere, and trying to get that all standardized is really a chore.
Yeah, it's just interesting. All the things that were sort of global in your single account, all those features have to eventually get elevated up to the orgs level now.
I think just being able to run a compliance report against what you want it to look like is probably almost as valuable as enforcement, at least to begin with.
Yeah, and they also have a new capability to do tags for new resources. So you could create the thing saying I have the standard, and then only enforce it on new resources, and then just have the compliance report to kind of open tickets and then close them out as you want to. So there's different ways to do it. So it isn't quite as impactful, but it's super nice to have it, and capability is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, without enforcing, it's pretty much like pulling crabgrass if you have a pretty decentralized organization.
Hey everyone, Jonathan here. I just wanted to take a minute to thank the cloud consulting gurus at Foghorn for helping make the CloudPod possible. These folks truly get it. Cloud consulting experts since 2008, they are premier tier partners with AWS, Google Cloud Platform Silver, and Microsoft Azure partners. From multi-cloud to containers to moving full production workloads to the cloud under the tightest compliance, Foghorn's team of full-stack cloud engineers have been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt, and are ready to share their experience with you. If you're in the market for some talent to supplement your team, visit www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. www.fogops.io/thecloudpod. Foghorn, the promise of cloud delivered.
And then there were several new improvements to the WAF. Those include a new rules methodology to allow you to use OR operators. This allows evaluations that would previously require multiple rules now be in one rule. So you can do if this, or this, or this, instead of having those as separate rules. And they also remove the 10 rules per web ACL limitation that used to exist as well. They've also provided a new Amazon Managed Rules capability, which gives you instant protection. The Amazon Threat Research Team maintains the rules, with new ones being added as additional threats are identified. These things include things like Amazon IP Reputation List, admin protection for admin websites like WordPress WP-admin page, core rule sets, known bad inputs, etc. And the new Amazon WAF now fully supports CloudFormation, which means it probably will be supporting or will be supported by Terraform very soon as well. So that's really great features for the WAF. The WAF is finally growing up, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of partners who are selling subscriptions to those managed lists.
Yeah, I think they'll get away from the basic ones like IP reputation and move to more high value add subscriptions in the future, which would be great.
Yeah, keep everyone moving forward. I love it.
I thought Ryan was going to say something. He's the WAF guy. He had the unfortunate task of having to deploy this across hundreds of accounts. So
Yeah, I mean, that deployment effort was really just a lot of swearing and a whole lot of project that ended up being non-operational in the end, unfortunately. But largely because of a lot of these shortcomings, right? Like you could buy the simplistic rules, but at the time I was doing this, you had to do that for every account that you managed. You couldn't do it centrally, and so that was a great improvement moving to that. And I think this is the next level where you can start, really trusting Amazon to do that protection at a level that's higher, right? So I don't want to, the rules that I'm going to write are going to be so simplistic considering the things, that Amazon's going to provide through their machine learning and their security feeds. So this really is a fantastic thing. There are security teams that are rejoicing, I am sure.
This is kind of slightly personal for me as well, not because I've used AWS WAF, but because I think using Logic years ago, they suffered from exactly the same problem in that they had rules for everything and a web interface, but you literally had to scroll through hundreds and hundreds of rules, no way to manage them as groups. They clearly had the features that we wanted, but we just couldn't use them. It was just unusable as a UI, so Amazon have certainly heard the complaints about the same issues with WAF, and this is really cool.
Moving on to DevOps and Dev tools. The first one is simplifying cloud provisioning with your Amazon Service Catalog connector for Jira Service Desk. This is a simple way to do Service Catalog deployments with a ticket workflow, all fully integrated into Jira Service Desk. So if you're not using something as heavy as ServiceNow, this is a really great capability and feature to you. This Connect plugin for Atlassian is free, and you can get it in the Atlassian marketplace if you want to start creating some workflows that use Service Catalog.
Such a refreshing change that it's not $10 per user per month.
That is a nice change of pace. There's a couple other things that got announced in here as well. PowerShell for version 4, app config, etc. The next one, though, I want to talk about is Amazon CodeBuild adds support for test reporting. This allows you to add support for test reporting, giving you an effective and consistent view of your test executions in CodeBuild. Previously, you couldn't visualize your test results in CodeBuild, making it harder for you to troubleshoot test failures. And with the test reporting, you can view detailed results, trends, and history for tests executed on Amazon CodeBuild for any frameworks that support the JUnit XML or Cucumber JSON format.
It was very painful. I totally agree. I've seen lots of people struggle with doing testing or debugging problems with CodeBuild, so this is really good. Very happy to see this.
The CDK has gotten that long-promised Java and .NET support in addition to TypeScript and Python. So if you are becoming a cloud CDK evangelist, which was a big topic at reInvent in general, I think you can now do that in Java and .NET, which is pretty great.
How strange I find this. I understand Python. Python's very sort of halfway between. It's halfway to kind of a scripting language, and so I can see quickly putting something together in Python and running a script which is building the CloudFormation template for you. But the thought that you'd actually use Java to build something as dynamic as a CloudFormation template, then build the application and then run the application to generate the template seems a little extra work for me. Unless there's some kind of other use cases I'm thinking of, like you programmatically want to create templates, then maybe that's the use case. But it's.
Well, I think when they announced CDK, they were really pushing the idea that you, as a developer, you didn't have to leave the language you were comfortable with to do CloudFormation. And so I think this is why you're seeing Java and .NET is if you're a Java developer and it's easiest for you to deal with Java constructs, then just write the CDK code in Java that you know and love and care for, and then you can check it in with your code base without having different languages in the same code repo. I think that's why they're doing this more than, which I agree with you, is it's easier to do this in Python than it would be to do it in Java.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. The Java that I've done has been like Android apps, things like that, which seem enormously bloated for something like CDK, but you can write simple applications in Java, so perhaps I'm being a little unfair. .NET, though, nah, who cares?
There's millions of developers who disagree with you on that comment. I'm going to move on to the next one here. Announcing cloud debugging for debugging your applications running in the cloud with JetBrains IDE. This uses the AWS toolkit for IntelliJ, PyCharm, WebStorm, and more, which enables you to debug your cloud applications by directly accessing code running in the cloud. Previously, you would have to step through the debug your app, and you had to rely on features such as local emulation, which attempted to replicate complex cloud architectures on your local machine. I was not at the session where you guys talked about this, but I know you guys were pretty pumped about it.
Who was pumped about it?
I
You
don't
can
know.
really hear the excitement.
I know. Who was pumped?
I thought both of you guys went into this debug thing where they're talking about debugging locally, and you guys were all jazzed.
No, that must be somebody. Must be the other podcast.
All right.
I think it's a pretty good idea.
I want to know how this works. Like, I like the idea of it, right? But is it, for Lambda, I can see how this would be very neat and very useful.
It kind of ties in with the conversation we had about the serverless model versus SAM and how they support different local features, and so you never know which one to pick, or it's you kind of want to pick them both really to get a fully featured local development environment. And so by providing something like cloud-based debugging with the interface being local means they no longer have to really continue working on local testing features for Lambda.
Yeah.
Because you can make it look like it's local even though it's not. So this is super.
And that's a huge complaint, right? I hear from developers all the time is that they're so used to deploying things locally or testing locally, but the minute you use DynamoDB in your application for your your key value pairs or what have you, you're like, oh, well, then I got to do this whole thing. And so, if this does that local emulation where you can run that test and you can kind of stub out against it, it is really helpful for keeping your iteration time short.
We can finally remove all the print statements from the Lambda functions now.
Still need those for my CloudWatch logs, so I don't know.
Another CDK preview feature. The CDK Explorer, this is a plugin for the Visual Studio Code product from Microsoft. The CDK Explorer allows developers to visualize CDK apps in the sidebar. It's seamlessly integrated with the UI, and you can look at this as you're writing the code natively. So if you want visual confirmation that you put that load balance in the wrong place, this will tell you in visual style, in Visual Studio Code. So that's very cool. I haven't played with this one yet. I downloaded the latest version of the Amazon Toolkit for VS Code, and I haven't got a chance to play with it yet. Which then would mean I have to learn how to do CDK, so I guess it's a good forcing function just to see the pretty graphs. You guys are just stunningly on top of this.
We can get some coffee again in this room or something. Like, is there?
Do you actually use Visual Studio for development?
Yeah,
I jump between Sublime Text and Visual Studio Code quite often.
I only use Visual Studio at this point. I've fallen madly, deeply in love with it, and I could not go back to Sublime or anything else.
And the cool thing, it integrates natively into Docker now, so you literally can maintain your Docker images right there in the VS Code product. You can run dev environments in Docker containers natively. It's pretty sweet.
I can execute my code locally in a container that I've predefined, or I can have it SSH to a machine and run over there. I can do all kinds of really cool stuff, and it's got a ton of support for all these plugins for like Terraform linting and like whatever have you. You guys should go after them for some sponsorship so we can help them up some more.
Dear Microsoft, we'd like you to sponsor the Cloud Pod so we can talk about using Visual Studio Code for Amazon, please. Yes,
Yes.
makes perfect sense.
We were almost entirely Atom at Foghorn, and now people are migrating.
Atom, really? Atom's pretty old.
Atom had its heyday, and then that just became a chore.
And then TextMate before that even was the other one that was out there.
But if you use JetBrains, though, you get built-in debugging. So
I mean, if I wanted to use an IDE that takes half the memory of my box, I just use Apple's development tool.
Yeah, really.
Xcode. I think it's still downloading, actually.
Yeah.
You win the lightning round.
All right. And the last one in the DevOps Dev Tools section is Beanstalk. They have two features, Amazon support for EC2 Spot instances, as well as Corretto support natively in Beanstalk. So you can use Corretto 8 and 11 if you're using a Java app that wanted to move over to that now in Beanstalk natively. So if you're a Beanstalk person and you like to use it, this is a nice feature for you to be able to save a bunch of money. So get to it.
It's one of those things I never thought wasn't there.
I think I'm most surprised. I mean, I get the Spot wasn't supported because people typically use Beanstalk for long-running things like web services or batch processing things. But the fact that they didn't support Corretto until now is just crazy, and it's not even GA.
Yeah, that was, and Amazon Linux 2, I think, as well, is also part of this announcement that's new. I was really more surprised that I heard Ryan Lucas at reInvent say that he loves Beanstalk now. So that was...
I'm a convert. I have seen the light. I had to study it extensively.
Nice.
And I've never really used it, so the proof is in the pudding. But like all the features as I was going through, I was like, oh, it does this, oh, it does that. Like it really does. And now that it's added Spot support, if you really don't want to think about the underlying infrastructure, why would you? I mean, if it's going to manage the load balancer, you can provide your own custom AMI environment for all these things. Like it does Docker containers, you can supply that. Like, what's really the point at a certain, so all the old complaints that I used to have about Beanstalk, about its inflexibility and its inability to do just that one thing that I really needed to make my app work on it, they seem to address all those things. And so now I can't wait to try this out and see if it actually lives up.
It's like it's kind of like a parallel of Lambda serverless, really, except it's serverful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the next thing, right? Is it'll be Beanstalk support for Lambda functions.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really a Heroku type app when they designed it, right? It was designed to take over that Heroku use case. And so that's what it was designed for initially. It's a pass player.
Yeah, there's still too many times when the solution to a problem with a stack is delete the stack and recreate it.
No one's got time for that.
Well, not to mention if it's prod stack, it's not always as fun as it sounds.
So, but I mean, they have all the new features, which whereas you can swap the URL between two Beanstalk environments, or you can, you can actually deploy Beanstalk in such a way that it'll replace half its instances at once and then do the other half.
Right.
You can do a rolling deployment. Like they have all these things now that have really beefed it up a whole lot to where even if you have to delete the whole stack, you're switching the URL under the hood. And you're just pointing it at the other stack, and you're done.
At this point, I'll just mention congratulations to Ryan for getting his DevOps Pro certificate.
Hey!
Thank you.
Yay! Congratulations.
This is not my first attempt, and the first attempt was a lot of Beanstalk questions that I had no clue how to answer.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time on this service.
Awesome.
So tell me about the command line parameter again. Is it -C or is it -L?
It's seriously, you have to know those things. It is crazy, like how familiar they expect you to get on all the breadth of services that they're testing you on. And you have to recognize the bad CLI command out of your choice of 6.
Speaking of certifications here, someone else got certified here at the CloudPod who adamantly opposed certifications only like 3 or 4 episodes ago.
It's a cold day in hell.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Pigs are flying? Are pigs flying?
Congratulations, Jonathan.
I'm just cheap. I only did it so that I could get a Pro Cert for 50% off next time.
Nice.
It's all about that. It's all about that discount, that Black Friday sale. All right, enough of the rat hole. So moving on to the operations and SRE category, tons of things around application insights for .NET and SQL Server, CloudWatch contributor insights for Dynamo is out there, as well as synthetic canaries, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the first one we're going to cover is the contributor insights, which is in preview. This is a CloudWatch feature. Contributor Insights analyzes time series data to provide a view of the top contributors influencing systems performance. Once set up, Contributor Insights runs continuously without needing additional user intervention. You can use Contributor Insight rules to evaluate partners and structured log events, or as they are sent to CloudWatch logs, including logs from CloudTrail, VPC, API Gateway, and custom on-premise and on-cloud servers.
And not a mention of machine learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's that
definitely
possible?
not machine learning.
It's coming though.
And then the other one here is Amazon CloudWatch Synthetics. This is the ability to run synthetic traffic to your system at all times. This CloudWatch will collect canary traffic, which can continually verify your customer's experience, even when you don't have any customer traffic on your applications, enabling you to discover issues before your customers do. Synthetics can monitor REST APIs, URLs, website content, checking for unauthorized changes from phishing, code injections, and cross-site scripting. And you can use CloudWatch Synthetics to isolate alarming application endpoints and map them back to underlying infrastructure issues to reduce your MTTR. There is a free tier of this, which you get 100 canary runs a month, and after that it is 1/100th of a penny to run a canary.
Okay, so you get three free tests a day. I think we may need to increase the scale of that just slightly to make it useful. But
Well, I mean, compared to services like Pingdom and some of the Keynote and those, like this is a fraction of the cost of those services. So,
oh yeah.
this is a great feature.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder. Like, you look at Route 53 health checks; they're pretty expensive by these standards. So, I kind of like to think that price would come down to meet this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you can connect them together, you'll be really set.
Yeah, but what a great feature! What a great feature! No more monitors.
I mean, 1995 called and wants their monitoring back.
Yeah, goodbye Nagios.
I do want to use these though and integrate these with infrastructure deployments as in the pipeline for like test-driven infrastructure.
I had the exact same thought, is being able to deploy these and have it run a series of tests to before it switches traffic over, or as it's verifying your canary deployment percentage. Like, it is a really fantastic thing to be able to deploy something programmatically, which I don't think you can do with some of those other services.
I guess it's kind of getting into the harness territory, because harness does the same thing where it gathers metrics for a period after deployment and then either decides to fail back or not. So I guess it's enabling automation to do that same type of functionality. I promise. Nobody believes me.
Sure. Okay. Amazon ECS service events are now available as CloudWatch events. So previously you could get task and instance events to CloudWatch, but if a service was changing, like scaling up more tasks or scaling down tasks, that was not sent out as an event. That is now there without having to require you to pull an API like you used to have to do with Lambda. So this is a nice enhancement. Pretty simple one, very quick container feature there.
Yeah, but this is invaluable. I mean, so much problems have been had because there's not a great metric for a lot of these events for scaling, so you don't really know other than after the fact. And capacity reservation's always been a bit of a dark art. And without any kind of programmatic event, you can't really react unless you're doing some sort of polling of the service itself, which is frustrating and kludgy. So this is great.
I think CloudWatch has kind of stealthily turned into a really great way to aggregate events from other services and then feed directly into Lambda or SNS or something like that. Because it started off being a cron basically, but now it's kind of the aggregation point for any events from any service.
Just add a rule.
On the serverless area, SAM CLI has simplified deploying service applications. Their Lambda supports some percentiles and maximum event age and maximum retries. We won't talk about those here, but if you're curious, check those out in the show notes. And then in the big data ML space, there's tons of Athena updates, several Redshift announcements around spatial data and resizing. The one I wanted to highlight here real quick was the Amazon Redshift introduces automatic table sort, an automated alternative to vacuum sort. This new automated way to maintain sort order of data in Redshift tables continues to optimize your query performance. Automatic table sort capabilities offer simplified maintenance and ease of use without compromising performance and access to Redshift tables. And now automatic table sort is on by default on Redshift tables where sort key is specified. So there was definitely a big push for Redshift performance throughout reInvent and before reInvent. And so if Redshift has been problematic for you performance-wise in the past, it may be much better now and do retest your workloads.
I thought it was cool. Across the board, I keep seeing more and more standardization on SQL as sort of the new global query language across all data sources, even if they're not RDBMSs.
Yeah. Do you think it's the end of the NoSQL era, or do you think this is just a weird period in time where NoSQL is kind of in a trough of disillusionment?
For me, NoSQL was always just this thing that you used when you were just way too big for SQL database, from a scale, from a capacity, from a global reach standpoint, and then everyone fell in love with them and started using them for their 5-user applications, making their lives so difficult. So, yeah, maybe it's time to see a little structure again.
All right, moving on to IoT. We're not going to talk about any of these, but there's several new features for IoT from the IoT Day, as well as Greengrass now supporting containers at the edge, which might be kind of cool for those use cases. And then moving on to our other category, we will skip the 15 additional services received DoD Impact Level 4 and 5 because they didn't win Jedi, so why do they need those? And we won't really care about the Workspaces client for Linux, but we do care about chatbots. And the Amazon chatbot can now run commands for you in Slack. So you can use a chatbot to retrieve diagnostic information, invoke a Lambda function, and create an Amazon support case from your Slack channel so your team can collaborate and respond to events even faster. So hallelujah on the support case one. I could use that every day of the week. Someone's always asking us in the Amazon room in our company a question, and we're like, you should open a support case. And now we just hit Slack Amazon support, and voila, we have a case. So that's pretty great.
I hope they fix the needing to know the account ID instead of using the account alias before it goes GA, because that's just a showstopper.
I did respond to Jeff Barr when he tweeted about how awesome it was, and I said, except for the part where you used account ID and not account alias, and he liked my response to his tweet. So
Nice.
maybe we'll see something there. Well, that is everything for pre-invent. So, whew, that was a lot. We're at something like 50 minutes on this recording, so I don't know, maybe like 40 minutes in the actual audio you guys get out in the field. And we still have a lot to go. So get another cup of coffee, and let's get to reInvent itself.
We're gonna, take a stretch.
Nobody wants the 3-hour episode, so I'm going to call time on this, and we'll continue the reInvent announcements in episode 51, out in a couple of days.
That is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting and Blue Medora. Check out our website where you can join our newsletter, Slack team, send feedback, or ask questions at thecloudpod.net, or tweet us at the hashtag #thecloudpod. See you guys next week.